This segment of the news has been brought to you by Sun Oil Limited.
For the avoidance of doubt, of any doubt, we will state categorically our opinion that Menace was the worst prime minister in this country's history. His refusal to accept responsibility for his bad decisions, eclipsed only by his penchant for pettiness, paranoia, and igniting ire.
Welcome back. Those were the powerful words of Prime Minister Philip Davis as he wrapped up the mid-year budget debate in the lower chamber last night. Prime Minister Davis said that the Bahamian people were right to vote out the previous administration, as he dubbed them, quote, aggressively incompetent due to a slew of reasons, including mismanaged finances. The Prime Minister compared the Menace administration's 4.5-year term in office to his administration's first 6 months, saying that he's done much more for the Bahamian people in a much shorter time.
We have reduced VAT to 10% on everything. We have removed the punishing cost of the travel visa for Bahamians. We have introduced free testing for COVID. We have distributed hundreds of thousands of free medical grade masks. We have expanded capacity at the hospital by hiring additional nurses and doctors. We have introduced public reforms and settle outstanding promotions and regularization of contracts. A Ministry of Education task force has been established to address learning loss of our young people during the pandemic. We have successfully reopened schools.
Prime Minister Davis went on to say that the abuse of the emergency orders was the, quote, original sin, that under those orders, the government was required to submit a report detailing expenditures, but the Menace administration did not. Former Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Menace has gone on record to deny this claim. 13 COVID-19 deaths reported by the Ministry of Health and Wellness over the last 2 days. 4 COVID victims were reported on March 15th, 9 on March 16th. These unfortunate deaths include 11 residents of New Providence, 1 from Abaco and the other from Grand Bahama. These deaths include males ranging in ages between the ages of 24 and 86 years old, and 3 females between the ages of 48 and 85 years old. These unfortunate deaths push the COVID death toll to 786. According to health officials, these deaths occurred between January 26th and February 24th. Meanwhile, the ministry's dashboard indicating that total non-COVID related deaths now at 182. 37 deaths remain under investigation. New COVID infections still being confirmed in the low single digits. 2 cases were confirmed on Wednesday. 1 a resident of New Providence, the other a resident of the Berry Islands. Total cases now at 33,211. Active cases now at 71, with 8 people in hospital, 7 moderately ill, 1 in intensive care. There were no recoveries reported on Wednesday. Renovations to Government House to be completed in July of this year. However, Permanent Secretary to the Governor General, Jack Thompson, noted he did not wish to commit to a fixed date just yet. He says as much during the office of the Prime Minister's weekly press briefing on Thursday.
The approximate date for Government House, the completion of renovations, continue to shift because, as you can imagine, every time you go into something, you find there's something else, and we've been having that. First, it was due to be completed in December last year, and then we thought we'd have it completed by April this year, and then I heard by July this year. So I'm not going to stand here and make any commitments to a final date, save and except to say that the work is well in its advanced stages.
P.S. Thompson noted that they've completely renovated the ballroom and the roof and the project is advancing quickly. Additionally, the project was originally pegged to cost $6 million. However, Mr. Thompson could not confirm what the current total is now, and he would have to follow up with the Ministry of Finance. Foreign Affairs Minister Fred Mitchell explaining the reason behind the country's decision to impose sanctions on individuals and entities linked to the Russian Federation. Now, some Bahamians have criticized this move, charging that it's none of the country's business to get involved in a war that has nothing to do with us, adding that this move may cause our country to become a target itself. To that, Minister Mitchell says this.
My own view is that on points of principle, you can't remain silent. And secondly, we are joined at the hip, so to speak, with the United States and our Western allies. These include the EU, United States, Canada, and our CARICOM partners and hemispheric partners in the OAS. And all of those countries have lined up against this invasion. So our own support has to be where our friends and allies are. So quite apart from the principle, that of the morality and ethics of it, or the ideology of it, this is a question of showing where we are, on whose side are we. And we are on the side of the West, and the Bahamas wants to be seen to be on that side. And of course, we're on the right side of history and the right side of the principles involved in this.
He adds that here you have a country, which is Russia, with a view of history which he says is incorrect, and its president, Vladimir Putin, seeks to impose that will on a country, which is Ukraine, that he claims does not exist. Russia has since invaded Ukraine, killing thousands of people, and is asking for the world to accept that as a result.
We do not accept that, and we reject it. And we reject it because the principle is the one on which we stand, is that those people have a right to their culture and to their country within secure borders, and a right to determine their fate, and not to have military threats imposed upon their good order. That's the reason why we support it.
It was announced last week that the Bahamas had joined the list of Western countries that have imposed sanctions on the financial resources of Russian businesses and oligarchs, with directives given to local institutions yesterday. It represents the first time the country has introduced sanctions in the absence of a resolution from the United Nations Security Council, and follows a formal request from the United States for the country to take direct action against Russia's invasion on Ukraine. Former Prime Minister Perry Christie says Hubert Minnis is looking for attention and trying to stay relevant. This comes in response to Minnis's recent comments directed at Prime Minister Philip Davis with regard to the position Davis took on the NGO that spearheaded a feeding program initiated by the previous Minnis-led administration in the presentation of his mid-year budget.
So Dr. Minnis made a mistake. Clearly, he must be very careful. He's a current member of Parliament. He's a former Prime Minister. He must know what's happening outside in our country, and he has a responsibility of being able to maintain the standards, of decorum in our country, and that was a mistake that I'm sure he recognizes. The challenge for him is he wants to remain relevant at a time when his party has a new leader, and obviously that's going to be a major challenge for him. It's going to be a major challenge for Mr. Pintard, because Dr. Minnis is not going to be easy in his posturing in Parliament, and this is evidence of it. His saying what he said was to attract attention, to attract it in the most graphic way, and to big himself up. And of course, things like that you just don't say in public life.
In his admonishment of Minnis for these comments, Christie also took time to lend encouragement to the former Prime Minister, noting that he too had to navigate through a very similar circumstance.
Listen now, we all make mistakes, I never thought when I did flip the bird or something, I never thought that would attract the attention it did. So. But we all make mistakes, okay? And most certainly, therefore, I'm able to look back and say, these are the things you have to avoid. You see it happening again now. And we have to be very careful in our public life now, because what goes wrong comes wrong. And vulgarity and obscenity we should minimize the extent to which we use those things to influence public opinion.
When asked if he feels it is time for Minnis to step away from public life, Mr. Christie says he feels that Dr. Minnis still has a lot to offer the country and that he doesn't think that he is done with his pursuits of higher office. Mr. Christie notes that Dr. Minnis is a widely respected, accomplished Bahamian and is not one to be underestimated. After its initial demonstration for government officials on Tuesday, Bluefields Farms in western New Providence again teamed up with IECA for a second drone demonstration at the Bahamas Agriculture Industrial Corporation on Gladstone Road on Thursday. The second demonstration was aimed at educating local farmers, giving them a drone's eye view into how the new technology can help them. Meanwhile, we understand Clay Sweeting, the Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries, believes drones can also benefit the Bahamian fishing industry. We hear more in this report by Renovations.
On Tuesday, Clay Sweeting, Minister of Agriculture, Marine Resources and Family Islands, commended the Inter-American Institute for Cooperation on Agriculture, or IECA, for its support of the Bahamas' food security initiative, and he welcomes the new drone technology in farming. However, as a commercial fisherman, Mr. Sweeting believes unmanned fixed-wing drones that can fly up to 500 miles, land and take off like helicopters can also be used in the fishing industry to help offset costs and provide other services to the fishermen out to sea.
Just now I was reminiscing in my life as a fisherman, and I remember there come many days and many trips that we as fishermen had to travel 200 miles back home because we couldn't receive the parts necessary to fix our equipment. These drones could help alleviate that. So these drones can not only fix the issue with farming and the sector there, but also with the marine sector to assist fishermen to enhance and lower the cost of traveling back and forth when we have issues with fixing machinery.
Owners of Bluefields Farms plans to use drone technology to deliver fresh crops to homes, restaurants, and hotels on the island of New Providence and Paradise Island, and eventually inter-island deliveries around the country using fixed-wing drones. This was also demonstrated with a live drone delivery of fresh vegetables to Minister Sweeting. Though impressed, Minister Sweeting says it is good to be able to access new technology, but the capacity to use it consistently and effectively is also important.
I have been an advocate for advancement in technology since my time in the chair, but my ministry also understands that the core structure must be in place for all aspects of the sector to cohesively work together. We know that the best results come out of collaboration, and we look forward to furthering our partnership with IECA to strengthen our food systems in the Bahamas and to reach the fundamental goal of food security.
In keeping with an initiative revealed during the mid-year budget debate by Jobeth Kobe Davis, the Minister of Transport and Housing, who mentioned the government's goal to implement systems and funding to help reduce cost of shipping food and building supplies and other goods to the family islands, Mr. Sweeting had this to say.
We are working very hard to digitize and to modernize our ministry to improve the ease of doing business in the agricultural sectors. As we would all note, gas prices continue to soar, and so we at the ministry are examining ways to lower freight costs from family islands to New Providence for farmers.
According to Minister Kobe Davis, the government has plans to further subsidize the mailboat industry and create new routes to include islands that are currently without direct mailboat services. Although the use of drones in farming is in its formative stages, industry experts anticipate farms will eventually account for an 80% share of the commercial drone market globally, and a part of that market expected to be in the Bahamas and the wider Caribbean. Jorino Saunders, JCN News.
Thanks, Jorino. Well, that does it for news this evening. Once again, I'm Leah Cooper, and from all of us here at JCN News, have a wonderful evening, everyone.
This segment of the news has been brought to you by Sun Oil Limited.